They told him to leave before the sun came up. The words were flat. No anger, no warmth. Just final. Evan Hale was 15 years old. He stood in the doorway with a small pack and a cracked data slate. His father did not look at him. His stepmother stared at the wall. The door closed with a soft sound. The locks slid into place. Evan stood there for a long moment. The streetlights hummed. The city smelled of metal and rain. He did not cry. He had learned not to. He walked. The lower districts never slept. Cargo drones passed overhead. Advert screens flickered with broken colors. Evan moved with his head down. He knew these streets. He had cleaned shops here. He had run messages here. He knew where not to stop. By dawn, he reached the scrapyards. The yards stretched 4 kilometers. Old hulls lay stacked like bones. Ships from wars nobody remembered. Freighters cracked in half. Patrol craft stripped 2 frames. This was where things came to die. Evan liked it here. Nobody asked questions. Nobody cared how old you were. He found work sorting alloy. It paid in meal chits and a few credits a week. He slept in a storage crate. It was dry and mostly safe. He learned which noises meant trouble. Weeks passed, then months. One evening, an old broker named Ma called him over. Ma smelled of oil and smoke. He always wore one glove. "Got something you might want," Ma said. Evan followed him through the rows. They stopped at a small ship half buried under tarps. The hull was scorched. The name was faded. Most of the ports were sealed or broken. "What is it?" Evan asked. "Survey ship. Old. Real old. Pre-expansion. No weapons. No registry. No owner. Been sitting here 30 years. Evan walked around it. He ran his hand along the hull. The metal was warm from the sun. It felt solid. "Does it fly?" Evan asked. Ma shrugged. "Engines might turn. Core is dead. Nav is fried. It is scrap. That is why it is cheap." "How cheap?" 50 cents. Evan blinked. Ma smiled. "Nobody wants it. Scrap value is less than the tow cost. You fix it or you live in it. Either way, it is yours." Evan looked at the ship again. Something stirred in his chest. A quiet pull. He nodded. "I will take it." Ma laughed. He handed over a data tag. Evan gave him 2 old coins he had saved. The tag was warm in his hand. That night, Evan did not sleep. He climbed into the ship through a side hatch. Dust coated everything. The air smelled stale. He wiped a console with his sleeve. The screen flickered, then went dark. He smiled. The next year was hard. Evan worked every job he could find. He cleaned reactors. He patched holes. He carried parts until his arms shook. At night he studied manuals pulled from scrap piles. He learned systems from broken pieces. He learned by failing. He replaced wiring 1 strand at a time. He rebuilt the power grid. He traded favors for tools. He learned to weld clean lines. He learned to listen to a ship. The ship spoke in hums and clicks, in resistance and flow. At 16, he got the lights on. At 17, he powered the auxiliary systems. At 18, he found a real problem. The ship core was not dead. It was locked. The design was old, ancient, No modern keys fit. Evan spent weeks studying the casing. He traced the patterns. He realized the lock was not mechanical. It was linguistic. The core responded to intent patterns, to structured meaning, to story. Evan spoke to it. He talked about his life, about being kicked out, about the scrapyard, about wanting more. The core stayed silent. He talked about fixing it, about learning, about staying alive. The core pulsed once. Evan froze. He spoke again, slower, clearer. I want you to fly. I want to see what is out there. I will take care of you. The core lit. Power surged through the ship. Systems woke in sequence. The hum deepened. The air grew warm. Evan sat on the floor and laughed until he cried. He named the ship Promise. At 19, Evan lifted off for the first time. Just a hover. Just a meter above the ground. The yard alarms screamed. Ma watched with wide eyes. Evan landed and shut it down. He left the yard that night. Promise was small but fast. The engines were efficient. The hull was tough. The sensors were far beyond modern civilian grade. The ship was built to map the unknown. Evan took small jobs, courier runs, data retrieval, hazard scans. He flew where others would not. He charged less. He delivered every time. People noticed. At 22, he crossed the fringe, past charted space, past the lanes. Promise guided him through gravity, shadows, and dead zones. The old sensors saw things no one else could. He found resources, rare gases, stable microstars. He sold the data cheap to small colonies. They flourished. He found lost ships. He brought crews home. He never asked for more than fuel and parts. He found ruins. On one world he found a structure older than any record. The walls were carved with symbols that matched the core patterns. The ship pulsed with recognition. They were built by humans. Not modern humans, not baseline humans, but people who had gone out before the expansion, before the collapse, before history reset. They had seeded the stars. Evan shared the data openly. The corporations laughed at first. Then they stopped laughing. The maps were real. The evidence was solid. The symbols matched across systems. Humanity had been here long before anyone knew. The narrative changed. By 25, Evan was famous. Not rich, just known. He refused corporate contracts. He kept flying the edges. He trained others. He shared the core language freely. New ships woke. Old hulls were pulled from scrap. They flew again. Survey fleets expanded. Colonies followed paths thought impossible. Human space grew not by conquest, but by understanding. Evan returned to the core world once. He landed near the city he had left. His father was older, smaller. He watched the ship descend with awe. Evan did not go to the house. He did not need to. He met Ma instead. The old broker laughed and cried. "You bought the future for 50 cents. Ma said. Evan smiled. Promise was not unique. That was the truth that shook the stars. Humanity had always built tools that listened, that learned, that waited. They had lost that knowledge. Evan found it again in a yard of broken things. At 30, Evan stood before the assembly. Leaders from 100 systems watched him. They asked what he wanted. Evan thought of the doorway, the closed lock, the long walk. I want every kid who gets thrown away to know this. The universe keeps receipts. Nothing is wasted, not even you. Promise hovered behind him, quiet, steady. Humanity surged outward, not as conquerors, not as gods, but as builders who remembered how to listen. And somewhere in the dark, old ships woke, one by one, waiting for someone to speak to them again.